program do not necessarily represent those of Natural Bridges Media or KSQD's staff, volunteers, or underwriters.
We're back. Hello, Santa Cruz, Watsonville, Capitola, Live Oak, Scotts Valley, and the San Lorenzo Valley, too. Have we got a show for you today at the 5 o'clock hour? Today, Talk of the Bay devotes the entire hour to discussing and reflecting upon the way our local community interacts and treats our most vulnerable members, sometimes called homeless, houseless, or the unhoused. Most of these denizens are actually from Santa Cruz, 70% of them. Homeless advocate and activist and Food Not Bombs co-founder Keith McHenry is with us in the radio house. Welcome to Talk of the Bay, 90.7 and KSQD.org. I'm your host, Chris Krohn of the Santa Cruz Political Report. We are celebrating our donors today because this is Pledge Week here at the Squid, so stay tuned. We'll be right back in a Santa Cruz second. Welcome back. This is KSQD 90.7 and KSQD.org. We've done 3 previous shows these past 2 years on the Ross Camp, on the Hell's Trail Camp, and on the San Lorenzo Benchlands encampment that is currently being emptied on orders of Santa Cruz city officials. Today, as he often does, we have Keith McHenry on the show to update and inform us on this most dire of issues, people living in camps and on our neighborhood streets. It is not a pretty situation, but it is one that demands our attention and the attention of city and state resources. Keith McHenry is a writer. He's a co-founder of the global movement Food Not Bombs, and he is also on the executive board of the National Union of the Homeless. Welcome back to Talk of the Bay, Keith McHenry.
Yeah, thanks, Chris, for having me. This is great, being here panhandling for KSQD. And
there you go. I like that. Do you ever get tired of talking about homelessness, Keith McHenry?
No, I don't get tired about it at all. I mean, the people on the streets are so inspiring. How can you ever be tired of just being in this world with these amazing people that survive outside? It's just incredible. They're so creative. Just to live outside is a full-time job. And, one thing I want to point out about that I've been thinking about, the city's had 2 years to come up with a real actual plan to gracefully move people from the benchlands. And everybody, including the Union of the Homeless, wants people moved from the benchlands because we don't want them to be put through that flood like had happened last year, right? But now what's happened? People are moving up the river. And so there's large camps already of formerly benchland people up Highway 9 and up in the Pognip, and it's on both sides of the river. And it's going to be, but the thing that's really tragic, because they've had these 2 years, they didn't plan to put portable toilets up there. They didn't put trash up there, trash receptacles up the river. They didn't make it so that people could get showers or fresh water. And so their excuse was that, in part, one of the things that Sonia, the mayor, Sonia Broner, was saying in her letter about the benchlands was, they found, that the river was contaminated by the people living there. Well, we all know that the river's been contaminated by, septic tanks for years, way before the benchlands. And now, does that really improve it to put people up the river further without access to toilets?
Well, what confounds me, Keith McHenry, is that, that the city had folks in one place. That means they had an ability to send social service providers to this densely populated camp, which, frankly, I was looking at some pictures today and how this thing grew. It was about a third of what it is now, and then it got to be like more packed, and then they just sent everybody there, from all over Santa Cruz, and now they're sending people away. Put yourself in the place of the city decision makers. What what are they thinking? What are they thinking is going to happen? They know that they don't have enough beds.
Well, the thing, I mean, either they're completely cruel or they have class blindness that's really dramatic. And I think a lot of it is that they have class blindness. They have no idea. They don't think of homeless people as human beings.
Talk about class blindness. What do you mean by class blindness?
Well, because the people that are making these decisions have always had a flush toilet. They've always lived in a house.
Right.
They have no idea what is going on. So it is just really, so the city made a decision. They had these 2 years. So what did they do? They evict everybody in June from the Armory. So 60 people get kicked out of there, and they told them to go to the Benchlands. If you got caught sleeping anywhere, I have one a friend who's she's a widow. She's in a walker. She got kicked out of the Armory. She goes and tries to stay on the levee. They harass her and tell her that she has to go to the Benchlands. So then my friend Nikki, who's born and raised, and the actual statistics according to the point in time count this year is 89% of the people were housed in Santa Cruz before they became homeless. 89%.
What was the point in time count?
And the point in time count.
Talk about that. What is that?
So that's to get federal funding. So to get this like $14 million that the city got and the money that goes to Housing Matters and all that, you have to do a count of all the people that live outside. This year it was completely messed up because, I mean, I found out from Grace at Lookout magazine that there was even going to be one.
There was a reporter, Grace Stetson, at Lookout Santa Cruz.
Yeah, Grace Stetson. And she said that many of the other people that she called had not heard that it was happening. And I usually work it every 2 years, so I had no idea. They never sent us, Robert, Dr. Ratner never sent out an announcement to service providers.
Is that incompetence, or is that calculated to have an undercount, you think? From your experience?
I think it's partial. I think the entire point in time count program is intentionally designed to have an undercount. So before point in time count was developed, there were the official number for years was 750,000 homeless Americans at any given night. Then you have the housing foreclosure crisis, and 5.5 million homes are foreclosed on, and the number goes down to 500,000. Because that doesn't make sense. Right now, we have the U.S. Census says that there's 3.8 million families that will be evicted this month in October. There is no plan by the city. So I think some of the people are malicious and really just, hate homeless people, and they just don't care that they exist and wouldn't mind them dying. And if it wasn't rude, they would just have them shot. There are people in power that would do that. But a lot of it is just like I say, class blindness. So that there's no, Nikki, who was at the same time they evict everybody out of the Armory, they evict 40 seniors out of Oceana, which was the COVID hotel. And the county walked up to them a couple of days before they thought they were going to be evicted, and said, "You're out of here now. Here's your pup tent. Go to the Benchlands." So that's the 100 people that are getting housed through this clearing of the Benchlands are the 100 people that were just in June sent there by the city.
So somebody must have one of those slow motion things of people coming and going at the Benchlands over the past year and a half. It would be a fascinating thing to see, because when I was there the other day, It was just on steroids, the growth of the number of people there. I used to think there was 300, then 400, well over 500 when I met you on the bridge that day. That was the last show we did on this a couple months ago. And now, before they started clearing, I'd say it was,
It was in the area of 500-600 people. I've counted 300 people in 1 hour, where I wrote down all 300 people's first name in 1 hour.
Wow.
That's, and there was, it was like from 1 to 2 o'clock on Thursday afternoon or something. And to have that many people verify that they're there at that time is insane.
It's the Keith McHenry point in time count.
That was my point in time count. And it is tragic too to see the police have also torn up people's tents as part of the eviction and destroyed all their belongings.
What's the plan? I mean, I guess they're moving toward the bridge from Water Street. Is that it?
Yeah, they're now they have
another evicting people.
Yeah, they have one more eviction that is coming up this week. And
I noticed a notice, they were trying to get people out. Saying, somebody sent me this thing, support or to witness the resistance to the elimination and functioning of the community check in at Food Not Bombs meals. Go directly to the Benchlands. This is for October 4th or 5th?
5th, yeah.
5th. That's tomorrow. You're thinking that they're going to be evicting, or
they I think when they're going to get really heavy is I think it's tomorrow. Yeah, they're going to start taking the rest of the people's stuff. So we've been mobilizing cars and trucks to get people out of there.
Where do you take them to?
And we take them up to Highway 9 and along the river.
So you know where they're going.
And basically the entire camp is just moving to. And then we've heard up the river, and now we're hearing that they're going to not allow any large camps anymore. But what are you going to do? And then by the end of the month, at Food Not Bombs, we are running out of all materials. We have to restock all these plates and cups and everything. I'm at you can meet me every day at New Leaf getting 5 to 10 5-gallon water containers.
I've seen you. I have a student who works at New Leaf and talks about Keith McHenry coming in. And,
I come in there every day. We run out of everything. The line now loops completely around the town clock.
The line of homeless people waiting to eat.
And then there's also a lot of people that are pre-eviction in line, waiting to eat before, trying to hang on to what they have. I know one person. Just paid her rent using her credit card because she had no more money. And then the economy's collapsing. Her interest rates on her credit card are probably out the roof if you're already that poor that you have to do that.
Okay, we're going to take a break in a couple minutes. I want you to go. I want to start with a day in the life of Keith McHenry. You wake up in the morning. Where do you wake up? Do you own a house? Do you rent?
No, I'm a couch surfer, but unfortunately, I'm hanging with my girlfriend, and I don't have to leave. But no, I don't rent. I sold my land in New Mexico, and I used it to put people in hotels.
So you get up at what time in the morning?
I get up at 4 in the morning.
4 in the morning, yeah. And then what do you do?
So then I will look at I'll read emails and stuff and respond to people. I answer the phone from the East Coast. I answer the hunger hotline. And so I get all the 211 calls and stuff from all around the United States. And so I do that. And then when I'm not actually doing that, then I'm working on my book. So I'm writing a book right now. The title is, it's a memoir. I'm basically done. I'm trying to get an agent so I can get it published.
You wrote another book, didn't you?
This would be my 4th book. Yeah, I wrote Food Not Bombs, How to Feed the Hungry and Build Community, Hungry for Peace, and I wrote the new version of the Anarchist Cookbook. And so now this one is called, right now it's called Soup Street.
Soup Street.
And it's about 600, it's 175,000 words, and it's parts of my life, like growing up in the Grand Canyon and other national parks, and then some, and the many things that led to me deciding to do Food Not Bombs. Like witnessing my grandfather demand that the atomic bomb be dropped on Hanoi. He was in OSS.
I want to go with this with the day in the life. We got one more minute before the break.
Then
you're 4 o'clock. How many hours you spend writing?
If I write until I have to go downtown, so I leave at about 11.
Uh-huh.
I then help with the meal. I go collect the water bottles. I go to New Leaf. I do a lot of ordering paper products from World Centric or filling out forms with Second Harvest. Then then I might be down in the Benchlands. So there's a days where I got the pallets of food that delivered to Resource Center for Nonviolence.
Okay, it sounds like we're up to halfway point of your story. I'm going to, this is KSQD 90.5 and KSQD.org. This is Pledge Week. I'm going to kick it over to Tim Fitzmaurice, former mayor, current poet, and who also teaches in the prisons, which is another show.
That's right. Well, we'll get around to that pretty soon there. And I tell them about this radio station. I tell them there's a radio station out there in their area that cares. And you know what? our radio station is trying to expand its signal, and it may even reach Salinas Valley State Prison, where I've been going for 6 or 7 years to teach poetry and creative writing and things like that. So it's really a wonderful thing. So call 900-5773 and support these people. Support people that really need to have the resources that Keith's talking about, the resources that people need in order to survive. And we know you're there, and that we know that you care, and that you're listening, and that you feel the same frustration that a lot of people feel about how is it we're going to break through and not move toward what one philosopher called nihilism, the desire not to believe in anything except your own personal safety and all of that. We don't want to move that direction. We want to move toward care and action and activism and those kinds of things, and that's what we're doing here. So KSQD.org, 900-5773 or 900-KSQD, and we'd love to have you as a member and as part of the family.
Thank you, Tim. We try to keep it real here, and listening to you, Keith, you mentioned like some people have malice in their hearts, and perhaps even some people in power, and we know that's true. Most people don't, but there was that phrase benign neglect back in the 60s from the Kerner report or whatever, and it isn't benign, of course. I think we all of us even, at one point or another, have some neglect going on when we turn the other eye instead of, we look away. Because it can be overwhelming.
Well, there's a philosopher who says there's an infinite demand out there, and it shuts people down. Yeah, and they don't know what to do with it. And so, he says the only thing to do it with it is to resist and then to imagine, to imagine a new direction,
and start where you are and do what you can, and start locally, which is what Keith is doing over and over again, day in and day out.
Yeah, it's an admirable.
It can be an overwhelming thing to try to solve, quote unquote, the homeless problem or all the world's problems. The proverbial peace in the Middle East, but do what you can, and part of what you can do is stay informed, and part of what can help you do that is KSQD, Community Radio. We're all part of a whole network and system of ways of supporting one another intellectually, giving you the information, but also speaking to the heart, so it's no longer just a separation kind of thing. I think we appeal to both of those here. I know anyone listening gets that message, and if you've given recently, thank you, but if you haven't given lately, or perhaps have never given, now's the chance to support this station that gives you information and fodder like this. KSQD.org is where you can make your contribution of any size, no amount too large or small, or call us at 831-900-5773.
Yeah, we're definitely going to expand this signal, and we're going to make inroads into other parts of this community, and we need to do that.
Yes, if you have contributed in the last few months or even this drive, make a second contribution perhaps if you can, just a one-time contribution. We have our ongoing expenses, and maybe you give $10 a month or $100 a year. But now make a one-time contribution, as a number of people have done, so that we can finish the fundraising to purchase some new frequencies to triple our listening area and better serve the entirety of Santa Cruz County and Monterey County and San Benito County. And you won't lose the signal as you're driving around, and you won't have to rely on the website to listen if you're living in Aptos or Watsonville.
What a beautiful thought, Tim, to extend the signal down to the prison where
they listen.
And down to Soledad, yeah.
That's just, folks, today we're seeking funds to not only stay on the air, which are your airwaves. You know that you own the airwaves, but we're looking for funds that we can thrive and extend that signal farther into South County. So if we can have the input of those, we want the input of those residents. We have Santa Cruz listeners right now, but we also are here for a greater good and a greater purpose. Go to the KSQD website. You go to the website. It's really easy. I did it. You look on the right side of the page. There's a red button that says donate. You click that red button. Maybe you like music here. I like Be in the Night with Bobby Bishop. I like Howard Feldstein's Giant Steps. I like Heart of Soul with Hollywood Al. I want to give a shout out to all my Talk of the Bay folks. Suki Westling's on Monday, Len B.A. is on Wednesday, and Rachel Ann Goodman is on Thursday.
And Christine also on Monday.
Skylark.
Excuse me. Yes, Christine is also on. And I don't know. What do you have any favorite shows, Tim?
Well, no, definitely the 3 jazz shows in the middle of the week. Just I rely on them, but it's so important to remember that This is a very diverse station. We don't have a single way of doing things, and that diversity invites so many people in. We have thousands of listeners, but we only have hundreds of donors, and we need to expand that.
Right, and I also like to point out that we're in some ways the jack of all trades, like we do many different things, but we do them well. It's not like we're master of none. I think we're master of all these things, because
we have great skills here.
I'm not a master of all those genres, but I can get a reggae master on a Saturday night, and I can get a classical master on a Sunday morning, and a talk master when Chris Krohn comes in, or an interview, somebody who knows how to do an interview better than I can. So all of that under one umbrella here at KSQD.org, and you hold up that umbrella by making a contribution at KSQD.org. When we get right back to the show, I just want to do two quick things. One is mention that we have a challenge going on so that your contribution will be matched by Leslie Lathrop. Very generous. We've raised 295 of the 515, so that, do the math, 220 left to go. Make your contribution now, perhaps 220 or perhaps half of that. Give us a call and she'll match it. And I want to thank the most recent donors, Mary, Brandy, Bridget, or is it Brigitte, and Cheryl and John Leopold. Thank you, John, who likes Crescent City Shuffle, Soul Shack, and the Grateful Dead Zone, a music fan.
I forgot to mention the Grateful Dead.
Yeah, those are some of my favorite shows.
All right, back to Chris and Keith, and thank you, listeners. Make your contribution, KSQD.org.
Welcome back. This is Talk of the Bay, KSQD 90.7 and KSQD.org. Today on the program, we're talking about the state of homelessness and the unhoused in Santa Cruz. I am talking with Food Not Bomb's co-founder, Keith McHenry, and we were in the middle of his life, a day in the life of Keith. He wakes up, he does a lot of writing. First, he gets on the phone to the East Coast, and then he does his writing. Then 11 o'clock, he bolts from the house and goes and does a bunch of shopping. And
yeah, and then the other thing that happens is, as you ever see me, I'm usually on the phone, also having one or two direct conversations in front of me simultaneously at all times. So basically at about 4, I start talking on the phone, and I get off the phone at about 9 at night.
I've seen him. He has more than one cell phone, so that's why we had...
No, I have one cell phone, but I have a toll-free number that rings to it called 1-800-884-1136, which I've had since 1994. So that's like really crazy. And then of course I spend a ton of time down in the Benchlands for the last couple of years. Not only bringing food, but also helping people out. I do a lot of raising money to fix cars and trying to connect street mechanics with cars that need to be moved so that the city doesn't tow them, because that's what their entire life is in that.
Who would think that? Who would know that?
Yeah, I do that a lot. The other thing is I go to Big Five on 41st on virtually every Sunday, and I pick up all the I buy all the tents that are on sale at $34 each, so roughly $500 to $1,000 on at that time. Then I also cook. I'm currently the cook on Wednesdays and Sundays at 100 Enterprise Way in Scotts Valley. Those are my 2 days to be doing the cooking. So I cook. Recently, I've been doing about 10 to 11 5-gallon hotel trays of food, which includes rice, beans, and stir fries and soups and pastas.
Do you cook in Scotts Valley, or do you actually serve people too in Scotts Valley?
No, we cook in Scotts Valley.
Bring it back.
We bring it down to the town clock.
And so, are you serving every day, or you have organized it in such a way that you're out going to get the mechanics, answering phone calls, working with other people, and other people are sort of like doing the serving of the food?
So we have like a team that does the serving. We have a team that does the food collection. So we have people going to to Gray Bears or to, Trader Joe's, and actually I just got a call before we went on air to go to Companion Bakery, so I do that. Then usually Companion Bakery's at the very end of my day. Then on Sundays, after I get all the cooking done and get all the water there and do all the business with all the people living on the streets, then I go see Paul Lee, hang out with him. And then I go down to Companion Bakery on Mission, pick up that food, and then I and then I go back home, and then I start doing more. I do a lot of graphic design, for I've been doing a lot of stuff for a new group called Brave and Free. I do like the homeless union stuff. Then I organize these meetings. So there's every Monday.
We're bumping up against the half hour.
Okay,
Keith
so
McHenry.
we meet every Monday at the Resource Center for Nonviolence.
Okay, and if somebody wants to get involved with Food Not Bombs, what is it?
Go to foodnotbombs.net.
.net.
Yeah.
Not .org. .net.
We lost org.
This is Chris Krohn of the Santa Cruz Political Report, which comes out today in Bratton Online. That's brattononline.com. My guest today is Keith McHenry. He'll be here the second half of the show as well, and we will be pitching because this is Pledge Week. And so this is KSQD.org. We'll be right back in a Santa Cruz second.
They want a black one after they got it for Mockingbird Hill. Back from the buses, went up in flashes.
We are going to keep the break short this time because we're doing all the pledged break. But real quick look ahead to tomorrow on KSQD's Talk of the Bay. The Global Carbon Reward is a bold new policy proposal for nations to cooperate to sustain our biosphere. It was started by Dr. Delton Chen, who will be featured in a November 2nd event in Santa Cruz. Tomorrow at 5 on Talk of the Bay, Christine Barrington presents excerpts from a Yale program featuring Dr. Chen and author Kim Stanley Robinson, a great writer, to kick off our coverage of this important proposal for a more sustainable future. Christine's going to devote 2 other shows to this as well. Let's Talk of the Bay tomorrow here on KSQD. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Chris Krohn and Keith McHenry.
Can I hear the echoes from days of 39? Countries full of bowling, ragged army, kicks and bayonets to fight the other line.
We are back. This is KSQD.org and KSQD 90.7. We're in the studio, and in the radio house is Keith McHenry. He's the co-founder of Food Not Bombs. He's also an activist and an advocate, and he's a writer. And, we were just talking about the tents and people living outside. What about the famous OVO, the Oversized Vehicle Ordinance? What about those folks who are living in their vehicles, Keith? What is it? Where is the Oversized Vehicle Ordinance at, and what's the fate of vehicle dwellers in the city of Santa Cruz?
Vehicle dwellers often get aggressively ticketed and then have their cars towed, and then their cars get junked. And this happens all the time. So a lot of the people in the Benchlands, I could tell you, that, Bob lost his car. He's injured because of a construction job. He's lost everything. Kazoo lost his car. He moved to the Benchlands. Many of the single women that live in the Benchlands are women who had their cars aggressively ticketed and then came to me. I had to give them the tent, and we tried to, get them to live on the margins of the Benchlands because it's not, just so because they're single women, and get them to safe men and people to protect them in the Benchlands. So that's what I've been doing the last 2 years. Now I have no idea where to send anybody.
But I thought the Coastal Commission said, the city of Santa Cruz passed this thing called the Oversized Vehicle Ordinance, which actually put even more pressure on folks. Certain hours, it excluded them from the coast, and the Coastal Commission said you can't do that. How has that affected anything? Do you know?
That doesn't seem like it made any difference. That basically you go on Delaware, the people are all kicked off. You go, down there, they're just, people are scurrying around. Then the county made a new ordinance too that threatens people's vehicular living. So I have friends that thought, well, I'll just move to the county, and then they get told they're going to be towed if they don't and get ticketed. So, and then the thing is that this is a nationwide crisis, and one thing people often like to say, well, first of all, that 89% of the people became homeless while being in Santa Cruz that were living here when they became homeless. That's one myth that everybody sent here from somewhere else. The second is, there's better, we have the better programs in Santa Cruz so everybody comes here. That's not true. There's actually better programs in Santa Clara County, but still they can't even deal with the crisis that they have over there. And those are some of the wealthiest people in the world. An interesting thing is that Alicia Cools, the president of the Santa Cruz Homeless Union, did a Public Records Act request and found out that the top attorney for Google, her husband has a meeting every week with the city manager and the chief of police, and they were very angry that they hadn't towed Alicia Cools' RV where she and her 3 little kids were living. And oddly enough, they also were angry that they didn't tow my car. Well, my car has no tickets, nothing like that. I don't know what their logic of that is, but that was in their email correspondence with the city.
Wow.
So there's we have 32,000 high-tech workers were just laid off. And many of those 32,000 live in the Bay Area. And many of those 32,000 are either going to try to move into rental properties because they probably have some money as a result of being engineers and stuff at Google. But they, then that's going to displace other people. And so we're about to see one of the most, almost all the famous economists and stuff that predict things show that we're going into a Great Depression. And that Great Depression is starting now. And we have to prepare for that. We should have thought for the last 2 years, as we were demanding of the city, to have safe places for people to go. I remember standing at city council. You might have been there at the time in 1988. And I was like, we need to start planning for an increased number of unhoused people because it's just going to keep growing. Well, there was virtually nothing done from 88 to now.
Why does it keep growing, Keith McHenry? Why does, California has the highest population of homeless people, that more than any state. Of course, we are the largest state. But why is homelessness growing in the United States?
The reason it's growing is the number of things. But now I've been homeless 5 times, and every time for me was because of a medical crisis. Now, for many people, it's because the wages have not, minimum wage didn't go up, but rents did. And are. And so there's a discrepancy between, you used to be like, you could rent an apartment with just one job. Now many people living outside have 1 or 2 jobs and still can't get off the streets. The other thing, once you hit the streets, you're in real trouble. Trying to get, you just imagine you're going to print out like your FICO score and all this stuff and go from place to place where your income is like $1,000 from Social Security retirement. That's what you're going to do, and who's going to rent to you at $1,000? Where you're spending 100% of your income on rent.
Interesting.
That's not going to happen.
The student that I have, who's a cashier at New Leaf, just got the job. She told me she sees you in there. Uh-huh. Actually, she's maybe behind the deli counter, but anyway, she's getting $19 an hour. And she thought that was decent, right?
Right.
And then her friend just quit New Leaf to get $19.50 an hour across the street at Trader Joe's.
Right.
And then I talked to a guy who's been working there for a year, and he doesn't get $19.50 an hour. This is one thing that capitalism, they don't want people talking about their salaries,
right,
amongst workers and stuff. And what's going on at the university where I am, new people all the time are getting more starting out than the current people who've been working 10, 15, 20 years in the same similar jobs.
Right.
And so I don't know where this goes.
Yeah, well, I think where it goes, so that's the beauty of Food Not Bombs from my perspective, is so the city has tried to get rid of us repeatedly. They actually passed an ordinance that we only could be at the town clock 2 days, 3 days, or 4 days a week, I guess 4 days a week. And then
they tried to. They didn't pass. I mean,
did it never pass? I don't know.
I don't know if it passed.
I think it
but
did.
You didn't pay attention to it, right?
Well, we ignored it. And then, and before that, we had a cease and desist order. We ignored that. What
are the repercussions when you ignore the law of the land?
It's completely insane for the city, because what it happens is that people come up to us and they go, "We thought you were kicked out of here and shut down, but you're still here 3 months, 4 months later." It just shows the the weakness of the state, that they don't have any power really, as long as you ignore them. But then the other thing that so Bernie Escalante came with
who is the current chief of police of the city of Santa Cruz.
Yeah, who has been my friend for a long time, and
you're hobnobbing it with the chief of police.
Yeah, well, when he was just a regular cop, of course, we deal with cops all day. The only people during at the beginning of the lockdown that were outside were homeless people, Food Not Bombs, and cops. So we all made friends. So anyway, I explained, you don't want Trader Joe's and New Leaf looted, so we have to do food every day. And he didn't acknowledge publicly, but he gets it. he's about law enforcement and keeping our town safe. So he's not going to mess with us for.
This is KSQD 90.7, and I am privileged to be in front of the microphone today. And on the other side of the microphone is Keith McHenry, the co-founder of Food Not Bombs. He's an author. He's an activist. Keith, we were just talking about sort of like how to working, and what wages are. And that's why we're the second most expensive city in the United States, because our rents, the gap between rent and wages it makes us that way. It's not that the rents are the highest in the United States. It's that the wages are near the bottom. I was in Shoppers Corner last night, and this guy goes running out of the store, and two young women run after him. I mean, when I was and he obviously stole something, and they're running down the street after him. They never caught him. And when I was at Trader Joe's, they let the person just leave. They never go after anybody who takes anything from the store. So you were getting into like, hey, if Food Not Bombs isn't out here feeding people, this is going to cascade.
It will. I mean, right at the beginning of the pandemic, there was two men with a rock that they were going to break out Oswald's restaurant window to get food, and we go, hey, you don't need to do that. We're at the town clock, and oh, that's great. And they just didn't loot, break into Oswald's to steal stuff to get food. So this is like super important to make sure that but people are getting desperate. You go to somebody stole everything out of my car on my birthday in San Francisco. And so I had to go to Walmart to get a toothbrush and stuff. And you had to get the person to come in and unlock the toothbrush section.
Wow.
Because people are stealing baby formula, they're stealing milk, they're stealing the basic necessities because people are desperate. They are so poor. And I think that if you're comfortable right now, you don't realize how hardcore it is on the street. It's like another world, and it's getting, like I say, bigger and bigger, the amount of people coming to eat. So I was 7 trays of 5-gallon hotel trays a day. That's what we were doing for a long time. Now we have to really be like 8, 9, 10 sometimes, because the amount of people is just.
What are the numbers like? Do you keep
it's
count?
Probably, I would say about 250 people come.
And I remember you telling me about 180 a while ago.
Yeah,
so it's climbing.
It's climbing, and we're expecting by the end of October it'll probably be 300 a day.
And you all, a lot of our community shut down during COVID for a couple of years. What was it like for Food Not Bombs? Did you shut down?
We didn't shut down. Today is the 935th day in a row we've shared food.
You keep that running count, huh?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're going to celebrate our 1,000th day on December 10th. We'll have some event at the town clock for that. It's still, there's the bag lunch at St. Francis, and there's still like this a senior meal that reopened at Loud Nelson, but it's slim pickings for people living outside. And we were feeding. The other tragedy about kicking everybody out of the Benchlands is we were bringing a pallet of food there every week, and then we had another pallet of food that came from Gray Bears there every week. Plus, homeless person's healthcare project came with their van every week. We could bring them water, so on. Now that's 500 people that don't have any access to that we have to now go and find, and that's really tragic.
How do you stay away from plastic? I know you all have gone to paper plates for serving, but how do you stay away from plastic bottles, the water bottles? Do you have a secret for that?
We can't. We fill 5-gallon jugs, and that's the way we do it. And I go to New Leaf to get the filtered water. One of the people that eats with us, who actually has been living up in the woods on campus now for decades, he suggested he didn't like our tap water because it's too chlorinated, and he said, oh, you should get filtered water. So we, on his suggestion, we started doing that every day. So we go through we're at least doing 5-gallon jugs.
So do you have like paper cups, or people actually bring their own cups with them?
We get compostable paper cups from World Centric, and they just reported they donated over $20,000 in paper cups. Now we try to, and paper products, now we try to get the stuff they can't sell. So because they're, that's like super valuable to
Yeah.
get. So we pay $50 for a truck to bring pallets of paper products in.
Our time is winding down, and I got a few more questions. I want to ask you, Food Not Bombs is active in other countries. I think it might be active, or is it in the Ukraine right now?
We can't reach the people in Ukraine, but we have been active in Ukraine. They were already freaking out after the 2014 coup, because the white nationalists and the and Azov battalion stuff were tormenting the homeless and tormenting them. But we don't know what has happened to them.
Keith is pointing to the actual Nazis that Putin many times uses as a reason why they invaded the Ukraine. There was this one brigade that was avowedly Nazi. But what other countries do you work in?
Yeah, well, there are actually many brigades that are Nazis in Ukraine, unfortunately, and it's a really large section of the community, sadly, and has been for a long time. But we are in Myanmar. We've been going through the entire pandemic under martial law there, and that's really interesting to hear how they get around being killed by the dictatorship. So that's been happening. We're in 65, 70 countries in the world.
Wow.
And we. We've got a bunch of groups like we got Tel Aviv, Jerusalem, and they're doing a lot of stuff in Jerusalem right now around the housing demolitions that our local chapters there's fighting against. We got a bunch of groups in Turkey. We're in Bosnia, Herzegovina.
So
it's all over the world.
I want to do a
Russia.
lightning round because I'm not going to get to these. 2 or 3 word descriptors. I'm going to say somebody's name. I want to hear what you have to say. Paul Lee.
He's a hero for our city, and I was so blessed I got to go to his 92nd birthday and so on.
Wow. Former city manager Martine Bernal.
Oh, my goodness. Thank God he's no longer city manager, not that the current one is any better.
Mother Teresa.
I've had my problems with her. She, denounced me, so that's the way that is.
Deputy city manager Lisa Murphy.
Oh my goodness! So she is not very honest, sadly, in her public comments and the brutality of her unit.
Robert Norse.
He's a very old friend of mine, and I think his standing for liberty and freedom is a beautiful thing.
Okay, we're gonna end that there. I've been talking to Food Not Bombs activist and also author and advocate for the homeless, Keith McHenry. I'm going to do a big shout out to Howard Feldstein, our sound engineer, and a big thank you to Keith and